The youth of South Africa are not short of potential, but of opportunity. With over 5.8 million of young people unemployed, the challenge is not ambition, it's access. So today we are asking a very important question. What will it take to turn potential into real opportunity at scale? Welcome. I'm Pamela Murare, and this is Beyond the Bottom Line. So today's conversation focuses on one of the most urgent challenges facing a country: youth unemployment and the structural barriers limiting. Recent data shows that nearly 5.8 million young people remain unemployed, with youth unemployment rates still sitting above 40%. But beyond this number, this is about something deeper. It's about access to opportunity, it's about inclusion in the economy, and the kind of leadership required to change the system. Because this is not just a youth issue, it's a national development issue. So to help us unpack this conversation, we are joined by the one and only Mr. Ravi Naidoo, who sits at the intersection of business, innovation, and enterprise development. So today we'll be exploring how leadership, especially within business, can move us from conversation to real, scalable solutions. So, Mr. Naidoo, for the audience that does not know who you are, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, thanks for having me. So my name is Ravi Naidoo.
Yes.
And I run the Youth Employment Service, or YES, which is a program funded by the private sector, but it works in partnership with the government to promote opportunities for talented young people to get their first work experience in employment in the private sector. That's what it does.
So building from that question, from your perspective, what do you see the biggest structural barrier preventing young people in South Africa from scaling real economic opportunities?
Yeah. So the reason why we have so many people unemployed in the country is, one, it's structural, that we've had a long period where people couldn't get the education that they need and the skills, opportunities that they need. So that's for historical reasons. But even in the last few decades, the economy hasn't been growing. So, and if the economy, and jobs come from the economy. So people often ask, where will the jobs come? We need 5.8 million, where will they come from? Well, in the end, they'll come from the economy expanding, where companies are producing more things that will be sold, and they need more people for more factories and more production. Or the offices that will be offering more services, and again, they're expanding and they need more people. So you need economic growth. And unfortunately, the economy since 2012 has been growing at about 1% a year, which is very low. And the population is growing faster than that. And anyway, so what's happening is the number of people who are entering the labor market who can't find jobs, that is increasing year on year. So at the moment, we have 43% youth unemployment. It used to be 36% in 2015, so it's grown each year. So a big part is just to get the economy to grow. And the second is we really have to make sure early on the way in which we finish restructuring education at schools, and also all the training and skilling that can be done after school, all of that is also improved to make people more employable, no matter what type of level of economic growth we have. So there's a mismatch. The economy needs to grow faster and skills needs to be a better match. So I think that is the key thing. And there are a few other things that are affecting it in between. Like it's also hard for people to find the jobs that are available. So there's also a matching of finding each other problem, a connection point of view. So sometimes you'll have a lot of vacancies, but people can't get those vacancies. There's something missing in what they have to fill those vacancies. And it may not be very much from where they are, but it might just be a small improvement here and there that can help them get those jobs. So it's both the supply side and the demand side, and in the middle It's just the connecting points that can be improved. So all of those things are impacting. And obviously there's a lot being done, which we can talk about. But I think that's really it. And South Africa has a very intense problem because of our history. But it's also a global problem. So all around the world, if you go to Spain, it's similar in a way. They really had a big problem with youth unemployment. And and Brazil was the same, and they had to make changes. And in a way, we need to catch up a bit with some of what they did, because they partly solved their problems. And now we must solve ours.
So I love the fact that you are in the industry that deals with the youth directly, right? So we talk about youth unemployment. It's not a new issue. It's been an issue for many years. So where do you think we're falling short when it comes to moving from awareness to actual implementation at scale?
So South Africa has been having a lot of programs, a lot of interventions. We definitely talk about it a lot. One of the problems on let's take the education and skills part. We spend a lot of money on education and skills. In fact, we are among the highest spenders in the world on education and skills. And I think in one of the international surveys, it was World Economic Forum, I think we were number 2 in the world spending the amount of money that the taxpayer spends. But we were right near the bottom in terms of what was coming out. So one of the problems is we have to look, so we're aware of the need to do it, but we have to improve the quality of our schooling system, for example. We spend 350 billion rand a year just in schools, which is more than many, many countries would spend per learner. But when they compare what happens at schools, I mean, it's a mixed bag. Obviously, some schools do very well, but overall, we kind of at the bottom on education. And at the moment, only 10% of the young people in schools even do maths and pass maths. So that's a real problem, because you have to do some maths if you're going to progress in many of the fields. But there is a way around it. I'll come to how you can do well even if you didn't do maths. So that's the thing we have to look at, is improving the quality of the education skills. Also, what is a big problem, let's take TVET colleges, and maybe we'll have a bigger discussion on that later, but these education institutions, so firstly, when you leave school, you must be employable. There shouldn't be an expectation you must go to university before you become employable. I mean, you've suffered through 12 years of school. It must be worth something. We should try to make people also have more workplace exposure while at school. But definitely when you go to TVET colleges and all those other post-school things, you need to have already in those institutions had some contact with employers. So TVET colleges should already be partnering with key companies. So if you're in a TVET college doing something to do with the motor industry, you would expect to have Toyota, Volkswagen, Haval, whatever it is, those companies being partners with the TVET colleges. So when you finish TVET, your qualification, you have been trained according to what those companies need. So you trade according to what is needed in actual industry. And you also know people. Because one of the key things about employment is knowing people. And you need to know people who can then help you. And they say, oh, Pam,
connections.
I've been watching you as you've been coming through the courses. You actually, if you just fix this thing on your what you're doing at class, you would be at the right level for us. Or when you finish, you'll already know, oh, there's Ravi who works at GWM. And you'll speak to me. So so it's that connectivity is very important also. So I think those things, the actual connection between the development of skills and the real economy in general is one of the things we have to have a much closer relationship between those components.
Okay. So there's often an expectation that the government needs to step in and solve everything, right? What role do you think, or should business and enterprise parties play in actively creating opportunities for young people?
Yeah. So the government has to play a big role because they're the government.
Yeah.
And you vote for the government to sort out social problems. It doesn't mean the government must do everything, but they're ultimately responsible for convening the different role players, putting them in a room and saying, okay, we won't let you out until you have come to an agreement that is satisfactory, because that's what people are voting for. But it's not to say if there's high unemployment, government will create all the jobs.
Yeah.
So what would government have to do at a high level? We need to connect potential, which is what you started with. People have potential. So South Africa has definitely got a huge amount of potential. So we have to connect that potential with the future. So if we can take all the young people who have high potential but can't find work, but they have high potential in all the right sectors, and we connect them to the things where we know the world economy is going to: green industrialization, digital sector jobs, tourism, particular types of social services, where we know those things are going to be very, very important for the future, and they're already important now. How do we ensure that becomes a talent pipeline that fuels the development of those sectors in South Africa? Then that's the kind of fusion that you then create that will power the economy. So government must bring together those parts of the equation. So they must say, okay, how do we help people get all the most talented people constantly coming into this pool? And how does that pool of talents then connect to all these companies that want to grow into those industries? How do we help them find each other, and how do we support them? So government doesn't have to do everything, but they have to at least convene that process. They must think about it, like what are the sectors, how do we bring these people together, and then they must create that infrastructure for it to happen. And then, obviously, the employees in green industrialization, they'll do the employing, they run their companies. And then people who come, who are being selected into these opportunities, they must compete for them. That's how it works. But government must put that together, or at least it must be a key part of that. So I think that's its role. It's a convener. It's a facilitator, maybe with just like key industries. Some of these key industries, when they're starting, government must put some seed money in. None of this is rocket science. Everywhere in the world where they are successful, that's what they do. So I think that is definitely the aspiration in South Africa, but we haven't got it right in terms of how we're implementing it. But it's pretty clear what needs to be done.
So what do you think is the problem or preventing the government from actually doing that?
Why they're not doing it if
Yes.
it's no. Well, okay, so I know what must be done. Let's put it that way. A lot of people know what must be done. Not everyone in government knows it must be done. That's the honest answer, okay? But a lot of people in government know what must be done. I think the president knows, because he said it himself. He was like, okay, we need this long-term process, this connecting. I think they're not properly connected within the government at this point in time. So different government departments are doing their own thing. So they're not lined up. So the people who are doing higher education and training are not necessarily connecting to the people doing trade and industry, who are not connecting to the people who are working with actual investors, which might be, there's other entities doing that. The people who are dealing with the big money, the Public Investment, PIC, Public Investment Corporation, Industrial Development Corporation, IDC, they're not connected. They're the ones who fund with business these new industries. They don't properly connect. And industries and government don't talk well together. They spend too much time fighting. And one of the things is if you want to grow the economy in a way that's going to create jobs, South Africa can only go forward on what I would call partnership-based economic growth.
Yeah.
Government can't do it. The private sector can't do it on its own because it needs certain things to be supported by government, right? Because a private company is just there to make money. They're not there to create employment. So for them to now create more opportunities for young people that they don't absolutely have to, there has to be some way in which the government can encourage them or regulate them or something to do that. So I think there isn't enough actual practical partnerships between the companies and the government at the moment. But as far as the PowerPoint goes, which lists what must be done, I think most of us know. But then practically, we spend a lot of time trying to get people to actually talk to each other and behave well. And so that's what's missing. Because if I'm a company, just think about it. If you're a company, now South Africa, I'll give you an example. We are now, we solved load shedding mainly because the private sector started to do a lot of renewable power. Remember when the government changed the rules in 2022 and they let people increase their investment for solar and renewables? Before there was a cap, how much solar power you could build, which was crazy because we had load shedding. Why have a cap?
Yeah.
Just government took the cap off, and then suddenly we had billions and billions of rands going into renewables. Right. Now, if I was a company putting these billions and billions of rands into renewables, I can definitely employ more people, but government can also help me understand that if I do something this year and it takes me 5 years, are you still going to support me in year 2, 3, 4, 5 of this program to hire people? Because if I do something this year, next year, and then you suddenly change your mind as government, well, then I've lost all my money. So you have to give me as the employer confidence that the thing I'm doing now, you will support me for the whole time that I need to do it.
Sustain it.
Otherwise, I won't make that long-term investment. So a lot of it is how government can give companies an assurance they need so that they can do things which are long-term. And that's where jobs are. You actually don't build a factory unless you know over those 10 years, you're going to be able to make the money back on what you put to build the factory. Think of a mine is a 20-year investment. If you're going to hire people in rural towns for mining, you're only going to get your money towards the end of the 20 years.
Oof.
What if the government changes mind in 4 years and says, no, we changed, we don't want to do that anymore? You've lost your money. Farming, the same thing. How long do you think a tree takes to grow? 20 years. So these are long-term things, and that's where jobs come in, and then the government needs to be able to give these industries a sense that, you know what, we are together for the long term. And I think that's where internationally, they when they get that right, the money starts to flow, and then you see more ability to connect it to employment.
Okay. So expanding on the question, we often speak about leadership, but not always in practical terms. What does practical leadership look like when it comes to addressing youth unemployment?
Practical leadership, well, it means you have to be able to get, so you have to have a vision as to what you want to achieve. So a leader and leadership in youth employment and in jobs is you have to have an idea as to where things are going to go, where you'd like to take things. And then you have to also be able to make decisions that you have to be decisive about getting something implemented. Because you can also have ideas, but if the ideas aren't matched with action, it's not great.
Pointless.
And so I think a lot of it is around understanding how the different role players will actually work together. Like what's actually happening. So, I gave an example about renewables. It's a very interesting thought, but if you were to actually be in charge of creating green jobs, you would have to also know what the companies in green jobs are actually doing. What's on their mind, what is affecting them this week, what are the problems they're having, and so on. So I think a lot of it is paying attention to the actual details of implementation. And then, if something's going wrong, you have to be able to make changes. So you have to be able to say, we tried this, we took a risk, it didn't work. Now I have to change something. What would, there might be implication for some people. People get fired, people get hired, things get started, stopped, and so on. So I think it does require some ability to be brave and decisive about it. So I think that's what we need, because we are actually, as a country now, largely stuck on a path that is not generating jobs. So if we were to switch to what I'm talking about, of how you do much, much more upscaled programs, and you link it to the new industries, you will have to make some changes that some people will find difficult, right? Because the people who are stuck in the ways of doing education and skills in a way that's not working. So we spend, practically we spend 50 billion rand a year on post-school, TVET, CETAs, other bits and bobs of things that are supposed to be making people employable, not. But people are getting 50 billion. So you're going to have to take that 50 billion away, or part of it, from them and put it somewhere else. The same thing now, if you're going to go to green industries, people who were not in the renewable space, think of coal, they're going to cry. But you have to be able to switch, because you can say, well, I can see where the future is going. And so that's where government would be very important to as a role player. And then, of course, leadership in the private sector is different, right? Because you would know the government is not going to make those decisions, all of them. So what can you still do? How can you, as the private sector, still make those connections to build a system where they still need skills for their industries, whatever government does. Doesn't matter who the president is, you still need your talent pool for your industry. So they would still have to have their plan B as to how they'll get their future workforces in place.
So you spoke a lot about the future. Let's bring innovation in. We're seeing more innovation and digital platforms emerging. How can innovation be better leveraged to bridge the gap between young people and opportunity?
So we definitely need a very enhanced approach to digital economy. So every job now would have a degree of AI use, some digital aspects, so every job will need some degree of digital aspects, some degree of AI integration, so across the board. And once you do that, you're going to find that the way in which you do things is going to be different, right? So I think so that's a general thing. So we have to be able to relook at all our processes. How do we make things faster, more targeted, etc. And you can see it now. Most people who'll be watching this interview, this YouTube video, would be using AI programs, right? And the moment you use it, you will be able to do some sort of diagnostic on your process. It's helping you speed up certain things, think about things which you hadn't thought about before, and so on. So what we find, I'll give you an example, when we look at the YES program in terms of, let's say, car companies. So YES has got 2,000 companies that fund us. And I look at a motor company that used to have 100 people doing something in the process. Now they use more robotics and AI. They employ 35. Not so good, right? But that company has improved its own productivity by 37%.
So young people are often framed as the problem. No. We're not the problem. Are we the problem?
That's your question.
Okay, so how do we shift the narrative to position the youth as an active contributors to economic growth?
Yeah. So people who think the youth are the problem must be hoping the world will end when they die, because how will we actually build a future economy without people being prepared for that future?
True.
So the way to properly understand the value of young people is it's like an endowment investment into the future, right? Because if you want to be successful in future industries, you have to prepare people for that future. So if anyone wants to retire comfortably, they're hoping that someone is making money in the future that pays their pension fund, which gives them money, right? And who's that going to be? Okay, so that is why it's very important that, so every country, even in fact, if South Africa had everyone employed, you'd still have a youth service. Why would you have a youth employment service? Because countries are competing for making sure their young people are being prepared for those future industries, because jobs are also changing. So it's not just about a job is a job is a job, although jobs are all important, but you also have to prepare people what's to come. So you got to think about how you are preparing people for the future. So it's like an investment. And the other way, so that's why it's important. It's not, so when companies and the government are trying to help young people, it's not because they are just socially conscious, it's an economic necessity. It's a strategic requirement. And that's how you must think about it. And in terms of whether it's a burden, and the problem is the way at the Youth Employment Service we think about it, right? When someone says, well, how will you solve this problem? It's so difficult. Our approach is when we help someone become important, let's say in the motor industry, or become a drone pilot, or become successful in the digital space, we are looking to them in 10, 15 years' time, starting a business that's going to employ other people, or helping, grow a company to become really powerful in South Africa that's going to generate more economic value and jobs. So the young person in our program is the catalyst for solving the problem. So it's not about handouts and helping and all of that only. It's really about how do we ensure this person that comes to the program becomes an economic asset for the country. So I think that's the way to think about it. So it's really the qualitative aspect of youth employment. So this person is very good. It's like a rough diamond, but with this support, they can become something very valuable to the country. Not everyone is going to start a company and do well, like fantastically well. But if we did 40,000 people last year, which makes it the biggest youth employment program in the world, funded by the private sector, if of the 40,000, only 10,000 went on to do something really, really remarkable, and the other 30,000 were kind of okay, that would be huge. 10,000 people going on to do really important things every year. Wow. So I think that's the way we're thinking about it. And obviously we'd love to do more than 40,000, but that's the way to think about the value of a person in a youth program, is how can that be pro-growth? How can that help the economy?
So you spoke a lot about collaboration. You said the government needs to come together. Public sectors need to come together to make the system work.
Yeah, and with the private sector as well. Yeah.
So what does effective collaboration between government, private sector, and civil society actually look like in practice? And also, how do these collaboration make more 5.8 million jobs for the youth? Yeah.
And in fact, because we have more people coming into the labor market every year who won't find jobs at the moment, let's make the 5.8 million 8 million. So I'll make the 5.8 8 million, because you must include people who are still to come.
Yeah.
Okay, so we actually pitched a proposal to government at a big event recently, and made two proposals, each of which would be 4 million jobs. And I'll give you an example, because they're both partnership things. So the first thing we said is, all right, the YES program supports 40,000 people a year. How do we make it 400,000 people a year? So at the moment, how do we get 40,000 people a year? We are a voluntary program. Companies can join if they want, they don't have to. But if they join, they get certain BE benefits, and the maximum that program can do now is 40,000. But if government said, you know what, we take youth employment as an actual priority, not just for speeches, but in practice. So we're going to make it an obligation on companies to participate in the program. I mean, companies do it voluntarily, so it's many of them want to. So it's not a leap for them, for other companies to be required to join. But if you said all companies of a certain size, you must put something back, you must join the YES program. That would go from 40,000 people to 400,000 people per year. Over 10 years, that'll be 4 million people. Because why should some big companies in this country not make a contribution to employing young people in their own business? I mean, surely you must do it. If you're making billions of rands, can't you make a contribution.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing we said, all right, we already been tested as a voluntary program. It's really done well. You can start to make it more mandatory. That's what Brazil does, that's what China does, and that's how they develop their workforces, number one. Number two, we spend, like I was saying earlier, 50 billion rand on post-school education, TVETs and CETAs and all universities as well, another 50, it's actually 100 billion. But we don't have anything at the end that guarantees jobs for people who have been so trained at taxpayer expense. So if we said, and in the total education and post-school budget is actually 500 billion. And if we said, look, just take 5% of that 500 billion. You're spending all this money training. Let's take 5% of that training money and link it to the private sector and say that money is to subsidize jobs for people who have been trained. Because now you finish your training and there's no jobs. So 5% of 500 billion is 25 billion. And you say to the private sector, okay, every time you hire someone from one of these institutions who've done these qualifications, you can access some of this 25 billion, but you must match 1 rand for 1 rand. So your 25 billion becomes 50 billion. 50 billion, again, would be about 400,000 jobs a year, just for people who graduating from our universities, TVET colleges, and CETAs. So suddenly, if you're doing those courses, there's going to be a job waiting for you at the end if you qualify well. Now you'll do the right courses. You know that there's a future, and these jobs are things we need for the economy, fixing infrastructure, doing digital type jobs, whatever it is. So suddenly you'll have that, 400,000 a year, which is over 10 years, 4 million, plus the 4 million I just gave you earlier, that's 8 million. And they're all partnership. All of these things are pro-economic growth, not rocket science to do, solves our problem, builds the future. So these are easy things to do if you want to do it. It's not going to be so easy to implement, but it's not impossible by a long shot to do.
Okay, let me bring in a practical question. You mentioned that when the youth goes to school, they need to choose the right courses, the right subjects, maths. What if Karabo is not good at maths?
Yeah.
Do you leave them out of the system now? Because, they're not very sharp or smart when it comes to, those subjects that can actually, make them to choose the right courses that will prepare them for the future.
Yeah. So I don't think anyone is necessarily going to leave Karabo smiling there out, but the world will work in a certain way, and the world will leave you out. Now, there is a solution, and the solution is, people think is the problem, but maybe it's a solution. If Karabo really isn't good at maths, like many, many people, these days you can have an AI maths friend sit on your shoulder and help you. So depending what you might be short of, for whatever reason, you would find an AI tool that can help you. And I think that is actually a huge opportunity for South Africa. In the same way that teachers who struggle to teach certain subjects, they can get a tool of AI sitting on their shoulder that can help them. You still need the teacher. So I think if we're smart about it, we can even use new technologies to just make us more productive, more effective. Because, so the way we think about what's happening in the future, if we frame it in a very positive way, we can get something from it that'll help us. So I would think AI could be very bad for us, but AI could also be very good if we use it well. Because you'll always need people. The two things about AI, they lie and they don't care about people. AI are the biggest liars because they just make stuff up. But they can be good at maths. And the second thing AI can't do is they can't get under the sink and fix your plumbing. So it's okay, but we can still use it in ways that can help us. Even a plumber will use an AI app now when they go under the sink, but AI can't do it. So it'll be a tool for all of us. So if we mobilize tools like that, we could really leapfrog even other countries. So you don't have to be held back now because you didn't do maths. You can use a tool that can help you now get up to speed. But it's very unlikely in any job you cannot have those technical skills yourself or a tool that can help you, because everything is going to have that degree, some degree of technical requirement. And I think for the future in South Africa, we must just make sure everyone is very, competent and comfortable with using AI tools. It doesn't matter what your career is, whether you're in financial services or you're a plumber, you're going to need to be able to work with that.
Yeah. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that is the end of our episode. I'd like to thank Mr. Ravi for coming to join us, taking out of his busy schedule to come join us today. It was a very insightful conversation. And that brings us to an important reflection. If the challenge is structural, then the solution must be intentional, coordinated, and scalable. So that's a wrap. Thank you.